Entertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. And I am Scott, your host, and a man who recently received an email from a company with a typo that said, put the anus of responsibility on us. Ew. I think they meant onus. I would say onus. And not a word that is used in common polite society, onus anyway. So it kind of, because probably for that reason. And with me is a man who never makes typos. He's still learning how to write down there in San Diego. It's Paul B. How's it going, man?
Good. Was that an insult or a compliment? I can't even tell.
It's kind of a backhanded. Before you came on the air kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, my anus of responsibility is airtight.
Oh, always good to know. Yeah. I'll tell you, you get emails sometimes, and everybody, if you work in marketing long enough, you have a terrible proofing error story of, well, we sent something out and it had this phone number or it had this on it, and so you feel for the people that end up doing that, but you can never put too many sets of eyes on things that say anus. You can't put too many sets of eyes on your anus. It's a rule, really. It's a rule. Yeah, fun. Well, you guys are on the big show here with me and Paul, and we're having fun. And I run a public relations firm that is for music companies, for startup companies, for a lot of different types of companies, and you just help them kind of cut through the clutter and cut through the BS that is our modern marketing landscape. If you want to reach me, here's how you do it. Scott@robertsoncom.com is the email. The website is robertsoncom, 2M's like communication.com. And of course, all my social handles are have something to do with Robertsoncom. Twitter is @robertsoncom and facebook.com/robertsoncom. That's fun. So you are tuned into episode 97 of the big program, and I'm glad that you're here. We're going to be talking about naming stuff today. I call this episode What's in a Brand Name? And we go to Shakespeare. Juliet said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Right? But if you work in marketing, sooner or later you're going to get the assignment of naming something. Maybe it's a new program, it's a new product, maybe it's the company itself, but why do names matter so much? Would Apple be as powerful if it were named Orange back in the garage? Is there science to this naming crap? So we're going to dig into naming, and we're going to find out how it relates to branding. And this is going to be another award-winning episode of the show. I can already feel it. You're tuned into a good one. We're also going to run down who's winning and losing this week in the world. Quite a lot of that going on. Quite a lot of winning this week. A little harder to find losers. I don't know if it's heading into Labor Day weekend or something, but it's been like a good news parade, baby. So it's a good news show today. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm glad that you've joined me for another fact-filled and fun-filled episode. So let's dig right into naming. Let's talk about the science of naming stuff. And there is some science to it, by the way. There really is. There's a lot of schools of thought of how and why you should name things. But to me, it comes down to something that comes before the name. And I think you almost have to say this, before you even get started in naming. So regular listeners to the show, what comes before naming anything? Messaging. That's right. Brand messaging. You must understand what emotion you're trying to push on, so then you know what your name is trying to do. That's why when companies come to me and say, we've already named it, we already have a logo for it, we already have a website, we've already secured the domain. It's like, well, what if we come up with something in the messaging part of it, which should have been done first, by the way? Well, what if we come up with something in the messaging part of it that completely changes what you've done? That's completely better. That's completely stronger. That is all those kind of things. That's why the first thing that you do in anything in marketing is messaging, brand messaging. And the first question that you ask is, what emotion are we trying to own with this? Because if you don't try to own an emotion, then you don't know how to point everything else, what you're doing, into that emotion, right? I've done lots of shows on messaging. I talk about messaging all the time. I talk about it all the time in my business. It is the most important thing that we do in marketing. It is the first thing that we're supposed to be doing in marketing, and it really comes before naming. But once you've got your emotion and those kind of things, and you've got your name, what makes a good name? There are a couple of things that sort of come out, in the science of naming. Some people will say it's alliteration, which is, the repetition of an initial consonant sound in neighboring words. And you see that in companies like PayPal, in Kinko's, in things like Lincoln Logs. You see that alliteration piece going on. Some people will say it's about rhyming, and of course musicians will say, rhyming is real important to us, right? Rhyming is a big deal. Similarity between syllable sounds at the end of two or more words. Rhyming can be really, really powerful. Things like nutter butter, smart start, things like that have rhyming characteristics, associated with it. And, there are also morphemes, which is kind of the smallest bit of grammar in the English, of any language. And then you kind of put those things together. Things like FedEx, Acura, Unisys, things that are like smaller units that are kind of put together to form, automotive companies are famous with this because they have to name products every single few years when they come out with a brand new thing. They have to name the family of things. And then they have to figure out, and then there's the whole family of brands, right? Then you've got, your, Hyundai Santa Fe, but then you've got your EL and your, L and your X, XL and all the various things that have to kind of work within, a brand family. And then you have this thing that is called onomatopoeia. So that is one word that imitates the sound it represents. Ziploc, Pop-Tarts, Roomba. People use that sometimes. People use words that sound like what they're going to do. There are a lot of kind of scientific things that you can do. As a lyricist in a band, certainly you relate that, obviously you have to convey meaning in the song, but what also do you have to do? You have to come up with ways that the end of the phrases, rhyme, and not that everyone has to rhyme, but it has to make sense within the structure of within the song, right? And there's a lot of different ways that songwriters do that. Well, kind of same thing in marketing, with some of these various devices like alliteration, rhyming, and morphemes and things like that. It's it's important to kind of know that stuff. It's really it's also important to kind of speak with a voice that the customer understands, a familiar voice. A famous one that is talked about a lot is that Apple's products all begin with a lowercase I. iPad, iPhone, iPod, whatever. If they come up with iWatch, or actually it's just Apple Watch now, thank you. But BMW has a numeric system that places every car in the hierarchy. But a lot of Ford cars begin with F. Fiesta, Focus, F-150, stuff like that, right? So we name stuff, and again, where it should start is at the messaging side, because then you finish messaging, what motion you're going to try to own, and now you have sort of a blueprint where you can start to try to name stuff that's going to evoke that emotion. Or if you know what your tagline is going to be from the messaging side of things, then you also kind of know what what's going to sound good with it, and kind of working from that angle. In my career, I've named a lot of things. If you work in marketing, like I said, long enough, somebody's going to come to you and say, "We need to name something," and it's going to fall to you. So it's a good thing to know how to do. it's definitely a place where you can use your creativity. I just recently I'm working with a client, and we're trying to kind of name their company, and it's a company in the artificial intelligence space. And so we thought maybe something where AI could be in the word, like something like chain, and then the AI in chain could be in there, and then graphically there's all kinds of things you can do. Now, see what's important about being able to do messaging first, naming second, and then logos and visuals and stuff third in that. Now, why is that a better way to do it, right? Because now, did you hear what I just said about the chain thing, right? If I just give them the name, maybe they come up with that. Maybe they don't, or if they create a logo first, then it's sort of backwards, right? Then you have to kind of like shoehorn your messaging, your most important thing in what you're doing in marketing. You have to kind of reverse engineer it, and that's always a very kind of a tricky thing. I worked for the National Association of Music Merchants for a long time, and we had to name stuff all the time. When I started there, the trade show was called the International Music Market. It was not called the NAMM show because the board of directors and some folks decided that they wanted to make it an international show, and they started calling it the International Music Market. Now, here's the thing. Nobody called it that. Everybody called it the NAMM show. It was a NAMM show before. Then they changed the message, said, no, now we're calling this the International Music Market, and they had an acronym for it or whatever. And one of the very first things that I did is, as I worked with senior management there, and I said, well, that doesn't make any sense, and that's really dumb. So we should go back to the NAMM show, because I don't know, that's what everybody calls it. Was I believe was the logic that I used at that time. Sometimes people overthink these things. Like Juliet said, what's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Sometimes you can overthink it, and sometimes you can give up your brand equity if you get a little too clever, with yourself. Another thing that comes up is domain names. Almost the first thing out of any client's mouth in 2018 is no matter what can we name it, and then they automatically think our choices of name are going to be limited by what URLs that we can get. Can we buy the .com? Can we buy the .net? Can we buy those kind of things? Well, I don't think that matters as much because they're all, first of all, with search engines, the way that they are now, having the exact URL of something isn't really as important as it used to be. It's not the end all be all. If you do your search engine stuff well, there can be a lot of other paths than just buying the URL the right way. So that shouldn't, if you've got a great name and it works really well for your category and those kind of things, then, I wouldn't let the web domain be a hindrance. Like, for example, for this company, did you know there are .ai domain names? So maybe you can't get a certain name with the .com, but maybe you can get it .ai. And if you're an AI company, then baby, that makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. It's like, or there's .tv. There's a lot of things out there, right? So make sure that you don't always get hung up in the mythology that, let's pretend it's 2003 and you have to have the .com domain name for everything. The world has changed, and you would do well to change with it, is what I would say. So be up on that stuff. It's really, really important. Now, what about IP protection for names? Intellectual property protection. Is it needed? I asked a good friend of mine, Kevin Schraven, from Hankin Patent Law here in Orange County, and what he said is that you automatically get your rights in a trademark through you almost get your protection rights through common law. It's never necessary to file for a registered trademark, but it is a good idea. And what you want to do is, as long as your name is not generic, and the example that he gave me was if somebody came out and said they wanted to create something called plastic guitar picks, then they're not going to get that trademark because it's too much of a descriptor of what all guitar picks are. Plastic guitar picks. And if you came out and said, well, no, my company name is Plastic and I make guitar picks, then you're never going to get that trademark, right? It's got, and we can do a longer series on kind of how that works. And ultimately, it's judged by the Patent and Trademark Office in lovely and scenic Washington, D.C. But what you can do is you can put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, You can, before you go to an attorney, it's always a good idea to spend some time, searching, spend at least a couple of hours, searching yourself and see what people are doing with it. Really, really important stuff to do. And then kind of explore whether it should be trademarked. Also, the earlier and more often you kind of file, the better on those kind of things. And those are great reasons to file. But again, and what Kevin wanted me to reiterate is the fact that you automatically are going to get the rights, through common law. It's never necessary, quote unquote, necessary to file for a registered trademark. It is a good idea, again, just to be clear in the marketplace about this is us and this is everybody else, right? A lot of things we talk about in positioning and marketing are, how do we, carve out our space so people know that this is us and this is other people, right? Really important. So last thing I want to say on naming is, Dunkin' Donuts is dropping the donuts from its name. And people are losing it over this whole thing. So the first store to drop donuts is in Quincy, Massachusetts in late last year. And the change is now rolling out to 30 more Boston area locations and 20 locations nationwide. The name change is part of a major rebrand that includes adding cold brew taps, digital ordering kiosks, and, obviously in a little more health-conscious America, maybe not being so tied to donuts, although donuts are awesome. I mean, I don't know, but anyway, they're working this whole rebrand. A lot of people are upset about it. Really, people are upset. Somebody said a couple of comments that came in social media were like, Dunkin' Donuts literally invented the word donut and they should keep it forever. We're going to have to do some investigation on whether they invented the word donut or not. It is possible that they did. I actually don't know the answer to that or not. But, man, Dunkin' Donuts dropping, just going with Dunkin', feeling like the Dunkin' is strong enough. And just, instead of having the DD for their brand logo, I guess they would just have the 1D, right? And they're just all about Dunkin'. Dunkin' whatever, coffee, those kind of things. But naming is really, really important, and that's another one of those alliterations, by the way, Dunkin' Donuts. There you go. And, naming is cool. We're talking about it all day today on May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Come on back. We're going to talk about who's winning and losing this week, kids. See ya.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Entertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EntertalkRadio.com.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott. We're talking about naming what's in a brand name. We just talked about Dunkin' Donuts. Now I want some Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know about you. Just talking about it makes me hungry for them. I tell you, Paul, what do you think, man?
I don't know if I want the donuts. I just want the Dunkin' now. I just want to dunk something.
You just want to dunk something. You know, you just dunking, man. It's all about dunking. But
it's really good. I was going to say we're actually kind of in the process here of going through names or trying to name a couple of projects and things and just twisting things in your head. So it's really good to have this framework of this is the hierarchy of where you need to start, and there's a science to it. It's really helpful. Appreciate it.
Oh, good, man. Absolutely. Well, yeah, messaging first. Always messaging. You know, like I said, if there's one thing that I fix over and over again, I shake hands with somebody at a cocktail party, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, we're doing some marketing, and we've already kind of named it, and we've created this, and we've gone out with this kind of thing." And I say, "So what emotion is your brand built on?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we don't have that." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "There you go." I mean, that's
and you're like, "Excuse me, I need to wash my hands."
I do. I'm like, what?
You're a disgusting person. You're an animal.
I just throw my drink in their face, and I'm like, "You're an idiot." No, I don't do that. But but I do kind of say it's like, like I said, it's the construction analogy is the best one. It's like you always want to put the foundation in there first, because if you don't, then everything else is just you're not building on anything. You don't know what you're building on. So really important stuff. Assignments of naming. Let's talk about who's winning and losing this week in the big world. Well, as predicted, the technology industry is pursuing its own federal privacy law on its own terms. This is kind of interesting. You know, we talked about privacy. We did a whole show with Will Marshall on GDPR and the California Data Privacy Initiative and that kind of thing. But now, as I kind of predicted, and I think as Will predicted as well, is that every state is going to start creating its own policy or privacy initiative for its state. And the technology companies are basically saying, look, we need a federal law. We need a federal law because it's going to be too crazy for us to figure out, all these different laws from these different states. So Google, IBM, Microsoft, Facebook, and others have aggressively lobbied officials to start outlining a federal policy. And the law would have a dual purpose that would overrule the California law. And by the way, the California law is nasty. As we talked about on that show, go back and listen to that show. The California law as it stands right now is brutal. And it's brutal particularly to the companies I just mentioned. Instead, they want to put together a kinder set of rules that would give companies wider leeway on how digital information is handled. Remember Will's story about why that law got passed and how it got fast-tracked? It was because the guy who pushed for the law ran into some folks from Google at a cocktail party, and they uttered the phrase, "You'd be surprised at all the information we have on you." So, I mean, you don't think these cocktail parties have an impact in the world, baby, and now you're sitting on a California law that is really got some teeth to it, and especially to pull back companies like Facebook, Google, IBM, Microsoft, all that kind of thing. But it's really interesting. This is a really interesting thing to watch, because if you're in marketing, this privacy thing is going to hit you over the face like a 2x4 in the next few years. Because all the stuff that you've relied on, all the data these companies have relied on to sell advertising will be gone. All of the data that they've relied on to sell and do direct marketing will be gone. All of the things that they've built entire categories and businesses they won't be allowed to do. And if they continue to do them, then the government will fine them into the Stone Age until they stop doing it. So you're going to see some really big shifts in marketing. And I don't think that they're all bad. I think that, us having, levels of data that we have on people. What is marketing? Marketing is the art and science of building relationships with people. What is the one way that you can name right now that you could destroy that relationship with one swing? Privacy, right? Absolutely privacy. You break privacy, and I unsubscribe to your emails, and you are dead to me forever. Okay? So it's like this is something that we have to get on, not just to comply with the law, but because it is a real relationship killer. It is extraordinarily important that if you are managing, relationships on behalf of a brand, that you understand privacy and you understand what your audience's tolerance for, perceived invasions of privacy, so that you can do the job of marketing is going to be important. And like I said, we did a whole show on privacy, so go back and check that one. But it's interesting that the tech industry is pursuing its own federal privacy law. So we're going to put them in some form of winning, because they won't have to deal with the California law if they're successful. You know who's winning is the American economy. Americans haven't been so confident in the economy since the 1990s. Consumer confidence in the United States soared in August to an 18-year high and hit seldom-reached peaks, reflecting surging growth in the economy and the lowest unemployment rate in almost 2 decades. The Consumer Confidence Index jumped to 133.4 from 127.9 in July. It is the highest level since October 2000. It beats the previous post-recession peak of 130 in February. Wow, right? Winning. All kinds of winning going on in the United States. Love it. You got to love it. You got to love the fact that we're on, we've been waiting for it for so long. For so long in every industry you worked in, it was like, the economy was good. People were like, well, I'm cautiously optimistic, which means I'm not spending any money. I'm scared it's gonna bounce back. But now people can, open up the budgets a little bit more, grow their companies a little bit more, do a lot more things that they weren't able to do before. And I think it's a really, really, exciting time. Also, while we're just talking about the United States just kicking ass, United States workers are now reporting the highest job satisfaction since 2005. Just more than half of the workers, 51%, said they were satisfied with their jobs in 2017, which is the highest level since 2005. Americans report feeling better about their pay, along with a greater sense of job security, both features of a strong economy with an extremely low employment rate and a long decline in layoffs. It is all kinds of good news, baby. It is all kinds of good news in the United States of America these days, and we love it because we sat through really crappy news for a good long time, and we're excited to have this kind of good news back. And, obviously, what President Trump's doing is working. I got to say, I voted for him, and I'm happy. Got to say that. So we're going to put that on huge winning. Huge. Next, very interesting thing. Google and Apple have now ditched the requirements that they are now say that job applicants they used to require job applicants to have a college degree. Now they no longer say that is true. It matters because many jobs have historically required employees to hold college degrees, even if they are not relevant or necessarily needed. This is sort of connected to an effort to improve diversity, make it easy for those to attend coding boot camps or others to pursue non-traditional college paths, to be hired. I think it's a good thing. I think, college is really expensive, is really expensive right now. And it's not, 4 years to kind of figure out what you're going to do anymore. A lot of these folks go to coding camps. They learn coding, especially if they want to do software development, and they just start doing software development. And I think that some of those folks, I've run into some of those folks before, and they are absolute killers behind the keyboard. So those are the kind of people that you don't want to have limited by any kind of dumb requirements. Say, oh, well, they didn't go to college. It's like, no, but they just coded the back end of our software and made sure that this whole piece was done. You know, I mean, I think it's a good realization, and I certainly think, you know, there's still great value in college, but I think that to me, I think that the price and the value need to come together. University system of this country is going to have to face the reckoning that the product that they offer isn't worth jack squat in the marketplace anymore, and so the pricing of it is going to have to start to come down, and you're going to start to see that. Yeah, I mean, I think that you will kind of, you know, start to see it. So anyway, interesting. Instagram is winning because they got they're working on a Twitter-style verification and better ways to secure accounts. This week, they started rolling out some new tools that are weeding out fake accounts, better informing users. We talked about that in our show on influencer marketing a little while back. Popular accounts will soon have the option for others to see more detailed information about them and that kind of thing. You know, there are a lot of Instagram accounts out there, right? And again, especially if you're looking at this on the marketing side as to who has influence, who has people following them, those kind of things, you want to be really careful about follower counts. You don't want to look at your top line numbers. You want to dig into that data. Make sure that you know that the folks that are, following an influencer are actually following that. But I think this is really good that Instagram is starting to recognize this. And of course, Instagram's owned by Facebook, so not a huge surprise there as to what they can do. Twitter, like I said, had to do the same thing because they had more than 1 million fake accounts following stuff. So Instagram's winning a bit this week. Missouri, my home state, lovely state, by the way, lovely, terrible weather, nice people. Missouri has become the first state in the United States to regulate the use of the word meat. Basically, there's now a law on the books in Missouri that prohibits food makers to use the word meat to refer to anything other than animal flesh. This takes aim at manufacturers of what have been dubbed fake or non-traditional meat. How'd you like that, by the way? What do you do, honey, for a living? Well, I'm in the non-traditional meat game, to be honest. Traditional meat would be, the animal, and then it's got the meat on its body. I'm in the non-traditional meat game where we make an animal out of other crap we have laying around. I'll give you some other words, though. Clean meat, which is known as lab-grown meat. Good God. I don't think I'm going to be able to eat those Dunkin' Donuts after all. Is made of cultured animal tissue cells, while plant-based meat really is generally from ingredients such as soy and two words I can't pronounce in the story. I'm going to direct you to USA Today this week to check out the coverage of Missouri becoming the first state in the United States on the clean meat or what have you. The meat substitute market is expected to reach $7.5 billion plus globally by 2025, which is up from $4.2 billion in the last year. So meat's a big deal, right? And obviously Missouri is taking its meat seriously, and now you can't call it meat if it's lab-grown meat or what I call it before. What they call it, non-traditional meat. What the hell is that anyway? I mean, non-traditional meat. Anyway, I don't know if that's winning or losing or not. I'm trying to decide. I would say winning, right? Because they're keeping it clear. They're protecting the cattle industries of Missouri a bit, that kind of thing. So let's put it in winning, just because we don't want to say non-traditional meat again. That's what I would say. Let's see what else is going on in the world. Oh, here's a good one. In-N-Out Burger. A little bit of flack coming up this week on In-N-Out Burger. Some customers of In-N-Out Burger say they are boycotting the fast food chain because the company contributed to the Republican Party. Oh, no. A journalist in Los Angeles discovered the restaurant chain donated $25,000 to the California Republican Party. And then the California Democratic Party chairman tweeted a link to the report to In-N-Out's calling for a boycott of the restaurant chain. A boycott of the restaurant chain. And if you live in California, In-N-Out Burger is always crowded. If you're going to In-N-Out Burger, the odds that you're going to walk in and approach the counter and be there within 10 minutes are slim to none. And if you try to do it in your car, you're really dreaming. You're seriously dreaming, because that line is out the door and around the parking lot in some kind of unsafe snake-like kind of manner. So I think they should boycott it. I mean, less people in line for us, right? That's what I say, you know. And then supporters of In-N-Out say the company has contributed to a number of groups that support Democrats who are business-friendly, political action committees and the like. We may have to do a story on boycotts. There are a lot of boycotts these days, right? People calling for boycotts. Boycott the NFL. Boycott In-N-Out Burger. Boycott. Shut up. Grow a skin, man. Seriously. I mean, you know, we don't have to boycott everything just because they do something that we don't agree with. And if you by the way, I just want to say this to the chairman of the California Democratic Party, probably an idiot, by the way, but if you actually checked the political contributions of every business that you did business with, you wouldn't be able to do business with anybody, because businesses make political contributions. Why, kids? For tax reasons, right? It's a tax deduction, class. Okay, so it's not. There's a different thought process for why businesses contribute and when they do and what they do and that kind of thing. And you're going to drive yourself nuts if you have to follow around and see what businesses contribute to and that kind of thing. Just stop it. Just stop it. I'm going to do a show about boycotting boycotts. That's I have an upcoming show. We're going to do a show about how stupid boycotts are, how stupid people are that participate in them, how stupid people are that start them, and we're just going to just list the various stupid in one place. It's going to be a good show. I'm looking forward to that one. And our last story in winning and losing today is, and by the way, I say In-N-Out's winning, by the way. In-N-Out's always winning. If I go to In-N-Out right now, I'm waiting 15 minutes before I can even get served. There's line out the door. Everywhere, by the way. Every location of In-N-Out's like that. Facebook is really winning. Right now, the number of Facebook users in the U.S. has inched up 0.9% this year to 169.5 million. Really, they are the top social network with everybody but teens. Snapchat surpassed Facebook as the most popular social network among U.S. teens. It's important to know that, right? Because people ask me that sometimes. What's the most popular way to reach teens? According to the data, Snapchat and Instagram for teens. Snapchat, Instagram for teens. For everybody else, absolutely Facebook. If you're on the B2B side and more, on B2B, then absolutely LinkedIn. Pinterest is in there somewhere. Don't forget YouTube. Of course, YouTube has a huge, multi-faceted demographic as well. But just keep in mind, Facebook being pretty much tops with everybody but teens. And you're tops right now because you are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Come on back. I'm going to give you some tips for naming your stuff. Talk to you.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Entertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EntertalkRadio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording number one hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott, hanging out with Paul in the booth, and we're talking about who's winning and losing. Paul, what do you like from the cavalcade of fun this week?
The In-N-Out story is pretty dumb.
Come on.
I mean, first of all, like, all right, fine. I'll understand boycotting a company if you find out they're, whatever, polluting a river or something, obviously. But just contributing a little bit of money to the Republican Party, one of the two parties we have in this country. First of all, that's not a big deal. And like you said, In-N-Out is not going to feel it. We have one actually that's like a couple of blocks away from our sponsor, Pitbull Audio. Every time I go down there, it's literally the line of cars spills out of the lot into the street, and they're just blocking traffic, just waiting to get in there. It's
In-N-Out
crazy.
Burger, they are known for blocking traffic everywhere they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like you can boycott them all day long, and it's like that's not going to have an impact.
Yeah,
it's just and then it turned out the guy was wrong. By the way, the information was wrong. That they did contribute the $25,000 to the Republican Party, but they also contribute at least that much or more to other Democratic organizations as well. So then the guy looks like a total tool because he doesn't have his facts straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it also makes me hungry. I think after the show, we need to go get some In-N-Out burger.
I need some In-N-Out burger now.
And we need to wash that down with some Dunkin' Donuts.
That's right. It's a plan.
Those are my new sponsors. New sponsors have made the best brand win are In-N-Out Burger and Dunkin' Donuts.
Are you serious about your burgers?
Are you serious?
Are you ready to dunk with the big dogs?
I like it. I can see it, man. All right, then. Well, let's get to it. So this is a whole episode 97 of The Big Show. We have been talking about naming. Naming. What's in a name? And I am going to give you 5 tips for your naming pleasure and your fun. Tip number 1, do your messaging first. I said that a couple of times. I really can't say that enough. If you're having trouble naming something, it's probably because you don't know why you're naming it or what the name is supposed to do. And the answer to the question of why you're naming it and what it's supposed to do comes from brand messaging. It comes from being able to say, our brand is about, like, if you're Apple, right? And you're like, our brand is about your empowerment. It is about you feeling cool about yourself and how powerful you think you are, and aren't you cool? And, we're just like, we just give you one more opportunity to think how cool you already are, right? And Apple does that. And if you watch their stuff really closely, you see it, right? They're just like, you're so friggin' cool. Look how cool you are. It should be illegal how cool you are. And, of course, one of the reasons that you're so cool is that you use cool stuff like ours, right? Like that. If you don't know that stuff going in, if you don't know that's what you're pushing on, then you don't know how to name something to get there. And you certainly don't know if you're a graphic artist out there. I mean, imagine getting the assignment and they say, "Oh, we just created this name, but we don't know what the visual representation is going to be." And then, I mean, you're throwing darts. I mean, you're throwing serious darts at that point. You don't know what you're doing. And then ultimately that's going to have to be fixed by fixing the foundation, which is the brand messaging. So again, before you do any of that, brand messaging first, even use a placeholder for name. I've had clients in strategy sessions before where we just said, look, we don't know what this thing is called yet, so we just call it name. And then on all the documents, the draft documents, they say, name is this, right? Because we don't want to let the name get in and color the message, right? It's going to be the other way around. Once we have the message, the name is going to support the message. And so it's really, really important to kind of do that. So, think about doing that. Like I said, I'm doing an engagement right now with a company. We're naming something in the artificial intelligence space, and we are, and all the documentation right now just says name. It just everything just says name TBD, name to come, that kind of thing. And we're trying out different things. So it's like that's the right way to do it. That's right. Even though it feels a little weird, because like in our mindset, we're like, well, something has to have a name before it exists. Or like if you're coming with a startup company, what are you going to call it? It's like one of the first questions. But actually, your first question should be, what are we doing messaging wise? What does the company to be named later, or the product to be named later, what role is it going to fulfill in the customer's world and life, and all of that, and then how do we do that effectively? So it's all about that. Do your messaging first. Tip number 2, don't decide too quickly on a name. Again, Juliet had it right? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Don't decide too quickly on it, and don't rush to do a lot of things like domain searches and stuff like that, and just try out once you have the messaging, try out your different names. Try it out with the tagline. Is that delivering? Give it. Sometimes when I'll equate it to songwriting. When you're writing a song, sometimes you write the song. You've heard stories that the great songs have been written in like 5 minutes. That isn't exactly true. What that means is like the first draft was written in 5 minutes, but then you let it cool off, and then you come back, and maybe there's some tweaks that are made. Maybe some tweaks aren't made, but that's a really good way to do it. I've seen companies before. I've seen lots of instances where things were kind of named too quickly, and then the train is already kind of rolling down the tracks, and we're like, well, we got we're already calling it. We decided we're going to call it Dunkin' Donuts, and then we don't know what to do. So I think I just really want some Dunkin' Donuts. I could say that story just really awakened a sense in me that I feel like I could use some Dunkin' Donuts. Soon to be a sponsor of May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media is going to be Dunkin' Donuts. I can feel it. But again, tip number 2, you don't have to decide too quickly. You can use placeholders on things, and you can, try out different things. Also a good idea, when we're talking about trying things out, you've got folks that are close to your brand, right? In this age of social media, maybe pick a few of them out and, private message them and say, we're thinking about naming something this. What do you think? People will always tell you their opinion. Also, just while we're talking about people's opinions, remember their opinion is one of many data points that you use to make a decision. It's not the data point that you're going to use to make a decision. You never want to be one of those people that it's like you change direction all the time just because people have different preferences or tastes or those kind of things. But you can start to get a feel when you ask a number of people, is it generally going over well? Is it generally confusing to people? Is it generally working? Is the alliteration working? Is if we're doing rhyming, is the rhyming piece there? If we're doing morphemes and like smaller units of language kind of put together and that kind of thing, is that working out well? I met with a technology company, and they were going to do something with vision, and they spelled vision VSION, right? And I just boycotted that. I vetoed that thing, right there, because I was just like, that's welcome to every conversation that you ever have about your company name will go like this. So it's VISON. No, it's VSION. It's the S because we're trying to be clever. But what they say about clever and Spinal Tap, there's a fine line between clever and stupid. Don't make things hard. Don't make things hard. Don't be too tricky about your name. Don't do weird ass things with spellings. Okay, people are in this country can't spell as it is. You certainly don't want to add to the confusion. Like I said at the top of the show, I got an email with a typo where they misspelled the word onus, and they put an A where the O should be, and it changed it to anus, and it was the anus of responsibility. And it's like don't make things too hard. Is what I would say. Don't spell vision with an S, with a VSION, vision. Oh, look how clever that this is. No, don't do that. But try that out. Tip number 3: make sure you seek that IP protection as needed. As my friend from Hankin Patent Law, Kevin Shraven, said, as we talked about, really, after you've done your initial search and you feel like you've got something that nobody else has, right? And you feel like it's unique and it's going to be something that would, get approved. And by the way, an IP attorney can be a great resource to tell you, because they know what stuff gets approved. They know what stuff is going to get approved for a trademark and what stuff is not going to get approved for a trademark. And, because they do this stuff all the time. It's just like if you bring a story to me and you say, hey, we've got this story. What do you think? I can tell you where that story will go and where it won't go, right? I mean, you do it every day, so it becomes kind of natural to you. So, but make sure, as Kevin said, when after you've named something, you decided we've got it. Really, registering for that trademark is a good idea. It's a very, very good idea. As long as your trademark is not generic, and that kind of thing. And what he said again was to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and really try to kind of build a unique position for yourself in the marketplace that will be helpful for the consumer, right? He said that you should definitely do at least an hour of searching minimum to see if somebody's using it before you go to an attorney. And going to an attorney is always a good idea if you think you've got something distinctive, and really you should at least explore whether it should be trademarked or not. Earlier is better than later, right? Earlier is always is better. And the last thing that he said was it's almost always worth it to get one. It gives you a bigger sword and a bigger shield in the marketplace, and that's what you want. When you have a name that you want to own for a long period of time, and you want it to be all about you. So anyway, seek that IP protection for tip number 3. Tip number 4. If your company focus changes or your audience changes, make sure you look at your naming again. When the foundation shifts, make sure the rest of what you're doing, still makes sense. I think the Dunkin' Donuts analogy or example is a great example for this, right? They are shifting what they're doing. They don't just do donuts. They do cold brew coffee taps now, and they do other stuff, right? As they try to look at ways that they can continue to make that franchise, very profitable. And because of that shift in the company business, then they look at the name and say, well, the name maybe is not as descriptive as it once was for us, and maybe we could get by with just shortening this thing to just Dunkin', right? AARP, right? AARP, which is the Association for Retired Persons, American Association for Retired Persons, or retired people, I'm not sure, but they just started using AARP as a word, as a word. So they would just say, AARP, and then not describing what the acronym stood for in their name, and that was a big change when that happened, and it was something like, they felt like they could create a stronger brand with just the spelling out the acronym without actually digging into kind of what it stands for and that kind of thing, which is always a bear. If you work for an association and you've got you've got the big association acronym, then people are always going to ask you, hey, what does that stand for, and that kind of thing. And it's another quick NAM story. I worked for NAM for a long time. That was National Association of Music Merchants for some time. Then the board of directors decided they want to make it the International Music Products Association. Then they decided they want to make that the tagline under NAMM. So what that actually did was it created 2 acronyms for the same organization. And one of them, and again, you had to teach the audience what that acronym was. And it was a huge communications nightmare and a mess. It was not cool. It didn't work out. So we fixed it. And we went back to, another good rule in communications. Don't push against the ocean. If the ocean's pushing that way, just ride the wave, man. And everybody wanted to call it the National Association of Music Merchants. It lined up so nicely with NAMM, and we said, so moved, rock and roll. And it's been, been great for them ever since, obviously, making that change. So, but if your company focus changes and your audience does change, make sure you are looking at that naming again. It's really, really important. Last thing I want to say, tip number 5, is there are no right or wrong answers to naming. There's science to it. There absolutely is. There's preferences to it. There absolutely are. But again, just to kind of, you will assign meaning to the name in the marketplace through your communications program. So as long as, one thing I would say is, as long as your name helps you out in terms of work, your brand messaging. You did brand messaging first. Your name is following that and making sure to, evoke that. As long as it's doing that, then you can assign the meaning in the marketplace to that, and you don't have to get, quite so caught up in having, quote unquote, the perfect name. Again, like a lot of things in marketing, there's no absolute right and there's no absolute wrong. It's really just what your organization can live with and deal with, and what is going to make you happy and make you and deliver on what you're going to do with your communications program. And so make sure that you keep that in mind as well. That because sometimes people think there's like a perfect name out there, and they'll delay everything while they're waiting on naming something for like 30 days or something. It's like, it's more important to get stuff done and out and going than have quote unquote, the perfect name, that kind of thing. So what did we learn, folks? We learned that naming is necessary, and most companies do it, they do it first, which can be a big mistake. Shakespeare didn't put all the value on the name, and neither should we. We really shouldn't. What's important is that we have a powerful, emotion-driven message. And whose emotions are we talking about? The audience's emotions. Their emotions are the most important thing that you want to strike, right? All about them. And the name that we choose, has to be able to reinforce that message. And that's it for me, folks. This has been Scott Robertson, host of May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media. Have a great Labor Day weekend. I will be back next week with a guest, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Entertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?